Hi, welcome to Something to Offer. I'm Dontoya Thomason. I'm really happy to be here, and yet I'm alone again. And I had and still have every intention of having guests with me here. I want to have multiple guests come into my home. I have plenty of friends in Atlanta that I'm going to have come sit down and have conversations right here with me. And I prefer that over Zoom because I want it to feel warm and you can see the connection and get to see the personal side of the interview. For people that listen to this podcast, it may not matter. You may not tell the difference, but this is also a video podcast. So I want people to see that interaction who enjoy watching it. But for the last 2 weeks, I just have been a bit frozen, like super Anna Elsa style. Could not get myself to book this interview. I had said that I was going to do it and I was, putting out the feelers and everybody's willing and able, but I couldn't pull the trigger. And my brain lately has been repeatedly telling me like, Dawn, everything's fine. You're totally fine. This is all fine. I feel like that meme of that dog at the table with the coffee cup with the fire around him saying, this is fine. Because my mind's been saying that, but my body has started lately to physically respond to the stress that's happening around me. And every day as it was time for me to get closer and closer to having this guest, I noticed that I couldn't schedule it. I couldn't pull the trigger. I was stuck. I was frozen. And after much thought and talk with my counselor, I've come to a realization that seems like it's an obvious one, but also so weird in this time when we're all not agreeing exactly on everything in life. But I discovered that I'm still shook by COVID-19. And it's weird to say that. It's almost kind of embarrassing, almost like I should be over it, but clearly I shouldn't because we're still in a whole pandemic. And although we're all in this moment together, we're all experiencing it in very different ways, which sometimes makes it really difficult to talk about. So in March, for example, when the initial shutdowns happened, I thought this is unprecedented levels of suckiness. But everybody I know is struggling with unprecedented levels of suckiness. So I'm not alone in my feelings of loneliness and upheaval and my life has been totally turned upside down. But I'm not alone. Everybody I know, their life has been turned upside down. I don't care if you're me or, always got to reference her, Beyonce. Even if her life is cool, she's still chilling at home. She can't go nowhere neither. We're all in the same boat. We're all in the house. Some houses might be nicer than others, but we all have to stay here. We all have to follow the rules. And so I felt not at ease with it, but I was trying to make good of what was happening with the situation because we were all locked down. We were all staying away from the grocery store. We were all not eating out. It's so funny. My friends would go to Costco and group text and say, hey, I'm making a run. Dawn, I know you like crackers. So-and-so, I know you need Lysol. You need diapers. You need this. And I'll get them because I'm going out today. It was like war. It was like, who's going out today and who can be of service to the community? And it was this understood thing that we were all doing the same thing. We were pitching in to help each other. People were dropping things off. And it was really a beautiful season. We were all wearing masks wherever we went. It was all so new. So we were all playing by the same rules and as many rules as we could. Now, granted, our government was not leading or giving any good or consistent information, but we'd all resolved. We saw that happening. We resolved, okay, we're going to take care of each other and we're going to take care of ourselves and we're going to get through this together. We're going to educate ourselves. We're going to protect ourselves. My group chat was becoming pretty morbid for a while. Every text was a new article about, a new way you could get sick or die from this, a new fact that was true. Hey, don't touch the cash register when you go to the store. Also, don't look at a person in the eye who you may think have COVID because you might get it. We had all these things that we thought were true. And then a week later, they'd send a new article that said, hey, just kidding, that wasn't true at all. Forget everything you know. We don't know anything. And really and truly, even my group text, somebody changed the name of it and put Corona in it. It was all consuming. Everything about us was about this. And I remember thinking at the time, why are these normally calm and semi-rational people acting like this? sending these anxiety-inducing articles. And for all my Enneagram people, as far as this chat goes, I'm one of 3 6s in the group. And I'm like, hey, if I can be chill with this, y'all can too. Like, what are we doing? Why is this so crazy? But as time has gone on, things have changed, right? There have been so much misinformation, especially with our government, not even really acknowledging that there was a pandemic until it was much too late in the game for that. People started to understandably grow weary. And in that weariness, we all sort of individually started to decide what we needed to do to stay sane, to stay safe, and to move forward with our lives. And when everyone has individually decided how to live, then it makes it really tricky to live in community together. And a couple of nights ago on Instagram, I did a poll on my IG stories and asked the question like, hey y'all, we're still in a global pandemic. How are you handling this mentally? Are y'all okay? And it was really interesting because it was absolutely split. Like, a lot of people responded, but it was split 50-50 down the middle of yeses and nos. And then I got a lot of side messages saying, hey, can I say sometimes or maybe? And here's why. I'm a teacher and I'm struggling. Some days I'm positive, some days I'm not. I stay at home, but I'm exhausted. I just got a lot of like, can I say maybe? And that's honestly where I fall in line a lot of times, is the maybe sometimes. And then I even have one friend, I had a personal side note conversation, who said, I saw your little poll, but I didn't answer it because I was too afraid that when I said no, you'd say, hey, let me talk to you about why you said no, or how are you feeling? And that actually was more telling to me than anything, because it showed our desire to say where we are, but there's a lack of vulnerability because, because you feel unsure, you don't want to have to explain to everybody like what low space you're in. It's such a roller coaster season, and you don't want to explain that, hey, I'm low today, but I might not be there tomorrow. And this person just really didn't want to say. So I want to talk about COVID. And before you press stop, because I feel like maybe you think, I don't want to talk about COVID, but I don't want to talk about the sickness side of COVID. I have so much sympathy for the people that have gotten this sickness, people who have lost family members. I know people personally who have lost very vital members of their family. That this is not just a 400,000 something number. These are actually real people that have touched lives, and there's so many other lives attached to these people. They're not just numbers. And so I honor that, respect that. But I don't want to talk about the sickness side of it. And I don't want to talk about the political side of it. It's so crazy that we've politicized this illness. The fact that to do one thing means you're on the right, and to do another thing means you're on the left. I don't want to talk about that. It's nuts, that's even a thing. And it's really sad, because I think that's actually a lot of the holdup with us figuring out how to move forward in this, is because it has been so politicized. But I want to talk about the feeling side of COVID, the relational side of COVID, the non-news making, non-headline grabbing human side of COVID. The place where we're all wrestling or moving forward or taking steps backward, but we haven't had the freedom to speak about it, or we do, or I don't know. I haven't had the freedom to speak about it. So I want to talk about it because maybe somebody needs to talk about it too. So let's get into it. Okay, so I told you that I was going to have a guest, and turns out I didn't, because I was in a space where I was like, everything's fine. I don't feel like anything crazy is happening in my life, and everything's going great. But recently, and I'm going to get vulnerable here, tell y'all my business, because maybe telling y'all my business will, aid you in maybe something that you need to do. But the other night I went to Target a couple weeks ago, and I always go to Target. I love Target. Why do women love Target? I don't know. But you found out the formula, and good job. You're a genius. I went to Target, I'm sure, to say I was going to get something for the family, like paper towels or something, and ended up in the home decor section, because that's really why I go to Target. I just need to find a knick-knack to put in a cabinet, to put on a shelf, because I live for that. But I was in Target, and Target has become this place where, although it's supposed to be relaxing, I always hear a baby crying like crazy, like someone's harming them crying. Always a baby stressing me out. And the reason I left my house was to not hear a baby crying. So I came to Target, and now you're tripping. So I think that I thought man, maybe Target's stressing me out, because I'm just standing in line about to pay. And I feel like my heart is about to jump out of my chest. I'm so, turns out, anxious. But at the time, I mean, I almost felt like I was having a heart attack, honestly. And so, I went home and Googled. Don't Google if you're like a stressful person. So I was Googling and, diagnosing myself. But, after a couple of things, a few hours later, it kind of went away. Next day, it was my day off. The girl that lives with us gives me a day off. And I was driving around town, living my best life, in the car again, have another totally like chest crazy attack. And then the next day, same thing. So that third day, I just go, you know what? I don't care if this is expensive or silly. I'm going to get an EKG just to make sure that I'm stressed out and that I'm not dying. And so I go do that. Turns out I'm not dying. I probably could run a lap around the block because, during COVID, I have gotten that COVID-19, that for real COVID-19, and haven't lost it. So I could stand to do some things, but I was alive and well and fine. And so the only option is that it was anxiety. And so I talked to my counselor about it. And the more we talked of all the things that are happening in life, the more we talked, the more it came down to this idea that I'm still shook by COVID. And as I said originally in the very beginning, I was like, this is what we got to do. Like, I don't believe that it's going to be gone by August, like everybody's saying. I don't believe it's going to be gone by Christmas. So I kind of found this pride in myself of going, I'm being realistic. I'm going to just not enjoy the ride, but I'm just going to go along. I'm going to do what I can and just till we get to the end of the finish line, whenever it is, 2021, 2022. I had just decided that. But as I said, as things started to change and people started doing things differently, I started to go through a range of emotions. And that's really what I want to talk about. I want to speak to these range of emotions that some of us are going through that we need to honor, talk about with our friends and family, and see how we can get through this season. Like, this is a long ass season. I think it's going to continue to be because we're all in different places and we're all doing different things. So my body was catching up to the fear that my brain has been having all along that things are not okay. Like, it's not going to end soon. And you're uncomfortable with the fact that you won't be able to be with your friends every day, that you can't fly to your home state and see your grandmother for her birthday and, be with your mom and be with your family. Like, I have these desires in my heart that just can't come to fruition. And my mind logically is like, cool, okay, life happens. You can't do that. It's fine. You're going to be good. But my body is struggling with all these other things around it. And so, I was talking to my counselor about this, and one of the biggest things that she said, and boy, was this true, and I want to share with you guys, is that I am struggling with control. Like, I definitely have a need to control things. And COVID is really messing up my ability to control situations. For example, I've always been a mom that's like, don't invite me to your house if your kid has a cold. Like, I don't announce that. I think that's like a standard rule that should be in the head. But like, if I come to your house and y'all are sick, I'm immediately like, oh no. Because I don't have those kids that get sick all at once. I have those kids that get sick in like order. As soon as one's on the tail end, another one gets sick, and like it falls like dominoes. So a sickness in our house can last for like 2 or 3 weeks of somebody calling my name at 2, 3 in the morning and me being tired of everything else falling down and being crazy and catching on fire. So I seriously try my best, even apart from COVID, to be like, hey, yo, if you're sick, don't hang out with me. If you have something, there's even like a funny thing, and my friend knows who I'm talking about, so I ain't gonna say any names, but one year a friend came to our house with the flu, and we all got the flu when my youngest was an infant, and we were sick. This house was sick for like 3 weeks. I didn't get the flu, but it was like a clown show. Adam, who never gets sick, got it. Zipporah didn't get it either, but my son got it. And you always have that one kid that when they're sick, they just act like, oh my God, like he is our kid that just, the world's falling apart. So you need to give them extra attention. And then the infant, my daughter was literally like 4 months, I think, maybe. She got it. So the joke on the street was like, yo, don't come by the house because Dawn's looking for you. And if she finds you, it's a wrap for you. So just lay low. Like that was the announcement to the friend that got us sick. And it was true. I was looking for them. So I've never liked this kind of concept. That's my control. I like to control things. I know that I need help. That's why I'm in counseling. Don't judge me. But I do like to control things because I know that when my kids get sick, they're not going to call their dad's name. And I do wrestle with anxiety in a sense. And that's another episode for another day, because I remember feeling and believing and truly thinking like, oh, Black women don't struggle with anxiety. And so I never really confessed it much and never even realized that's what it was until, a few years ago. But so when my kids do get sick, I don't sleep. I'm waiting for my name to be called. When I wake up in the morning and they haven't called my name, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have slept. So I've always kind of had these control issues, especially when it comes to the health of my kids. There's also some childhood trauma attached to that I won't get into. But so I do have this sense of control, and COVID has literally taken that from me. I can't control this scenario. I can't control people, quote unquote, doing what needs to be done to move us to a place where eventually we're like New Zealand or even Wuhan now that, seem to be doing kind of old days things. And so I'm wrestling with that, and that stress is going down into my body. And I'm not acknowledging it with my mind, but I've lost control of even how my kids perceive this, because my kids, they feel like I'm doing the uttermost. And I don't think I'm doing the most. I'm protecting them. But the fact that they've had to stay home so much, they rarely get to hang out with friends, I can start to see even the split with them. Like, Mom, you're doing the most. And that has anxiety going down into my heart. I'm telling them, hey, I'm going to protect you. But my insecurity in my heart is like, oh, I just want to be free to let my kids live their life, right? We moved to Atlanta, God, like 5 or 6 months before the pandemic, so that our kids could be with their friends that lived here. And they literally only had a few months before it was shut down. So, that's anxiety inducing. Another range of emotion that I'm wrestling with in COVID, and you may be too, is this judgy feeling. I'm just going to keep it 100. I try with all my heart to harness this and to not feel this way. But there are times when I'm, and maybe you can relate. I'm online. I'm like, nope. You need to not be doing that, because this needs to be over, and you're going to try to come over later. And it's like, you just start to feel yourself, though you're totally against that. It's just creeping up in my heart of I feel the stress going down into my body, that my mind is starting to look at people and question their actions because I want something to be over. And that's stress inducing. We don't think about that as stress inducing, but that's going down from my mind into my body. There's this high school element of it where I want to say, hey, everybody, I'm terrified. Can y'all wear a mask when you come to my house? Please don't make me ask you. Just show up with one and keep it on. I really do have this sense that I just want to be safe, although I want to be social. So when somebody does show up to my house, or I am at a place where people aren't wearing their mask, or, and I'm uncomfortable, I still am so desperate in this season for connection that I'm like, well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want them to think that I'm, this militant one, and they can't hang out with me, and then they won't want to be around me. And in a season of lack of fellowship, I'm going to have even less fellowship. So there's this anxiety being produced, going down into my body about the fact that I want to belong, even in a season of total confusion and a time unlike anything else that's happened in the world. There's this anxiety about being a rule follower. I'm a person, honestly, gosh, I want to be way cooler than this. But even when I was supposed to be the bad kid, I was always so what's the rule? I'm going to bend it a little bit, just a tiny bit. I don't want to go too crazy. I ain't going to be going wild because I'm trying to live and be a parent. I kind of always had this rule following somewhere deep down in my spirit. And so with COVID, there's just another level of anxiety, stress going down into my body of I just want to follow the rules. I want us to do what we can to get this over with. If they tell us to do this, let's just do this. Oh, that turned out to be a flop. Oh, well, we'll just try something new. And not everybody's okay with that. I totally get it. But my brain is let's just do what the grown-up tells us to do until it's all better. And so when that's not happening, that goes down into my body. And though my mind is saying everything's fine, my body's like, Dontoya, you're scared. you can't control it. You can't follow the rules because there are no real rules. And another fear is that my immune system's not going to be strong enough. Now, I made a joke about the COVID-19, 2020 came. I remember being at a restaurant with all my friends and we made all these declarations about what we're going to do in 2020. I usually don't make New Year's resolutions, but it was 2020. It's like a round number. It's like a perfect time to get your life together. So I was like, I got to get my life together. I'm doing no this, no that. I'm going to do some of this and a little bit of that. And it's going to be the best year ever. And I tried, even through COVID. I was like, you know what? This ain't going to mess up my goals. You think I'm going to let a pandemic mess up my goals? I'm a real one. And then I started eating chips and stuff because we were home all the time. So I can't go out. Why don't I just eat a pizza? Why don't I just eat a cookie? And seriously, ha ha hee hee. But over time, I feel like I've gotten into a rut where I'm like, I just can't get back on track. Turns out I'm very people motivated. Turns out I'm very event motivated. And without people and events, it's really difficult for me to work out for any long period of time. Now, I get the health side of it, but the vanity side of it, that go hard, the kind of working out that really gets me motivated, that has just I have stopped and started so many times because I'm just not motivated. I'm so communal. I need somebody to work out with me. I'm good at things. Working out, I'm good when it's time to do it, but it's not something that I like. It's something that I have to do to stay alive. So I do it, but I need community. I need other people doing it. I need to be a part of something. And so that a community, that stress is going down into my body despite that my mind is saying that everything is fine. And so all of this stuff was with me that day in Target. I've been saying everything is fine, but just this pressure in my chest was coming because I don't feel in control. I don't feel safe. I don't trust people. And here's what's interesting about COVID. Maybe you can relate. I feel like on top of the fact that you still long to be connected to people. You're leery about being connected to people. I actually had a hangout with a couple of friends the other night. Very intentional. I called them I miss y'all. We need to hang out. We can mask up the whole time. No cheating. If you pull yours down to eat, I'll keep mine up. We wasn't that deep. But, we really were we're going to do this. And so we did. But I even noticed, and I hope y'all think this is funny, the people that were there, while we were talking about, we had to talk about COVID. While we were talking, there started to be a mini COVID tension when you start talking about it. Because even my husband and I don't agree exactly on how we should play this thing out. So that can be difficult. I know a lot of people are wrestling with that. But in this conversation, I was like, well, my husband's doing this or he's trying his best. And then this person's like, well, mine is doing this and he's trying his best and mine's doing this. And I feel like COVID's the new cheating. It's oh, you thought your man had a mask on? Well, I saw him and he did not. It just feels like this weird judgy season where I'm just I don't like how any of this feels. I can't tell if what I said is being judged. And it just was it was a fantastic time, but there was moments that were never in play, a year ago hanging out with these people. And so I thought it was interesting. So maybe you're going through that. I want to talk about this because I want you to ask yourself these questions is this relational aspect? Are these my lack of ability to control things? Is this going down into my body? Because sometimes we don't read the signs of what's happening in our body until it's too late. Are you just grinding it out and you're stressed out because we're in an unprecedented season and we're not honoring it? I think one of the craziest things about the election, and again, I'm not gonna get political, but it's a point to be made, was that with Donald Trump, saying that the election was stolen, even though we know that there's no proof of that all of the attention was on that. People were dying in record numbers every day, and we just weren't talking about it. And it became almost like this clown show. All this chaos is happening on top of a pandemic, and we're being taught to just, keep going. And that's sort of, I think, what's overtaken me. The fact that we're not really talking about it in the way that we should be. now's the time to be asking yourself, how do I really feel? This isn't over. We're coming up on a year. It's very interesting. I'm actually recording this on the anniversary of Kobe Bryant's death and Gigi and all the other families that were killed in that helicopter crash. And I remember at that time just being like, this is insane. It's unprecedented. It's a crazy start to a season. And that's been a year today. And that's even like, still feels fresh. Like I can't believe that happened. We're not even to the year mark when we started finding out about COVID. And we've already sort of moved ahead, like we've mourned our lack of freedom. Like we've mourned the fact that we don't always know when money's coming in, that we've mourned the fact that kids can't go to school fully in some spaces and that they're not getting to do their things. I think about my niece, who was accepted into a magnet school of arts, when she was a freshman. She's a senior now. And you don't really get to do seniority type things until you get older in that school. And her end of 11th and all of 12th has just been nothing, because of COVID. Like, that puts people in a weird space. Teachers are in a weird space. I've gotten so many messages and had so many conversations with my friends who are teachers who are just exhausted, who have their own everyday dealings to go, man, I'm not on the same page as my husband with how to handle this. My kids are asking me every day, can I leave? Can I go here? Can I do this? Can I experience life? And then on top of that, I have to wrestle with parents who, aren't really adjusting to this online thing or just, keeping kids' attention on this. It's so much. I have a friend in particular who they started school online and then they went back to school. And then when numbers increased, they went back online. That's so much adjustment. And we're acting like this is all fine. Like, I feel like we're all this dog with the fire around us going, it's fine. Y'all, it's not fine. And it's okay if you say, I'm not okay today. Like, I just can't do another day where I pretend like this is normal. I can't do another day where I just let the stress go down into my body without doing something about it. At this point, I need to work out for my mental health, not to be fine. You know what I'm saying? That ship is like, it's on down the road. I just need to be sane because this is different. On top of the crazy political year we had, this is not normal. And sometimes we have to acknowledge when something's not normal. It's not normal that people that we've been lifelong friends with have decided to do things differently than us. That's okay. I think that we don't need to judge that, but you do have to wrestle with, okay, so how am I going to move forward? How am I going to mourn? One thing that my counselor said that I felt like was pivotal to me was the fact that the hardest part about COVID, at least she was saying for me, is that in life in general, it's very hard to set boundaries. To set boundaries with your parents when your life changes. Say, hey, you can't speak to me like that anymore. I'm not going to engage in this anymore. To set boundaries with your partner. To set boundaries with, strangers. It's very hard to set boundaries with children, with anybody. But in COVID, we've had to continually reset our boundaries. We've had to say, okay, I know that I said that I'm always going to wear a mask or I'm always going to do this. And then I went to this party and I was having so much fun that I kind of got loose with it and you saw me. So now you think that's where I am, but that's not where I am anymore. Now I really want to make this happen. I want to be safe. You have to continually say what you will and what you won't do. And that is vexing for us. That is very stressful to have to continue to reset your boundaries. And we have to be, and by we, I mean I, because this is what I'm really wrestling with. I have to be okay with going, this is not normal. And so I have to act in a way that honors the fact that it's not normal. If one day I feel like this and the next day I feel like that, I need to honor where I am. Okay? It's okay. That's really what I want to say to you guys. It's okay. It's okay, teachers. I can't even fathom what health workers are going through, right? People that struggle with mental health before this, what they're going through. It's okay to not be okay. If you can afford it, I would say this is a perfect time to get counseling, to get help, to get some guidance on what you need to do to not create unhealthy habits to cope. boy, am I preaching to the choir, because that is where I have been. Just how can I cope? What can I do? I mean, we actually bought a house, our very first house ever during COVID. And it was a very grateful distraction. But at the same time, that brings along stress when things are weird. But boy, I talk about going to Target. I have knick-knacked these rooms to death trying to cope, like finding joy in doing something. I've DIY'd and, this wall back here, y'all, this is my first DIY project. That's why I sit back here, because it's given me something to do. But you have to find healthy ways to cope, because another thing I've done is just, again, eating, truly just, it's a comfort. And you have to understand that is a trap, right? And so what can you do to get healthy? Can you afford counseling? Can you go outside and walk? Can you contact a friend? And I think the stigma with everybody being in different spaces is that we aren't reaching out to people like we should. We look at a person and go, oh, okay, well, they're moving like this and I'm not moving like that, so I can't talk to them about my struggles. Yes, you can. Like I'm on my Barack Obama. Yes, you can, right? We have to make this a practice of reaching out to one another. I think another big struggle with COVID is, I think in the beginning we saw, and maybe I know the celebrities break up all the time, but I feel like there has been a strange amount of people getting divorced, breaking up, separating, maybe from that season of being in the house together all the time, but really because we're going through unprecedented things together and we don't have the freedom to leave, to get away. We didn't at the time. People are doing things differently now. Some cities are open, some cities are closed, but we haven't had the same tools, right? You have to Zoom your counselor. And while you're Zooming your counselor, your person's in the other room who you're probably talking about. It's a lot of stress being induced and created. And so I want you to honor where you are. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to reach out and say you need help. Practice speaking more about where you are. And I want to encourage you. I know it's tough because I'm really wrestling. It's very high school, but I'm really wrestling with standing in my boundaries. If you're still a person that's going, I know this has been going on for months and y'all are ready to party, but I'm not. Can you respect that when you're around me? And if you can't, then I just may have to lose out for a little bit. I may not be able to hang out with you for a season. I love you. I honor you. I respect you. I can't wait. You're one of my favorite people, but I just can't do it right now because I'm wrestling through my own fear. I think we need to have, love for ourselves first and go, hey, Dontoya, the reason why you're stressed out is because you're trying to please people in the midst of being in a pandemic. And I don't think you can really do both. You can't wrestle with how to parent your kids and be a wife and still be a whole friend and get the counseling you need and, decorate a house and not eat all the junk food. Like, something has to give. And it may just be how people view you in this season. People who love you will love you and stand by you no matter what. So honor yourself. Honor the people around you. If somebody has a reason that they're doing something, don't judge it. Try to understand it, right? So anyways, that kind of went off on there, but I wanted to just say I'm going through a range of emotions, and that's why I didn't have this guest, because I wanted to be honest with myself and say, Dawn, you're not over it. It's okay. You may figure out another way next week or the week after to be able to make this work, but you are vexed and you need to honor that you're vexed. You need to honor where you are, and it's okay to be where you are. There's so much shame around this right now. There's so much shame in, am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the right thing? Am I sitting in silence when I want to speak out against this? It's okay. Be where you are. That's kind of the biggest thing I'm learning right now. Set your boundaries. Be okay with what you miss out when you set your boundaries. And I do have a closing thought, a quote from the great Maya Angelou that I'd like to offer you as we move forward in an unprecedented time. We're still here. It's not going anywhere. Let's talk about it. I need to hear from people. I need to understand, what you're going through as it relates to this so that I can make it through. So I want to offer that closing thought. So in closing, I really want to leave you with two of the biggest things that I think I'm taking away from this season. I've learned a ton of things, but there's really two things that I find that are giving me peace. One is in the very beginning of COVID, maybe 2 weeks in or so, maybe a weekend after shutdown, I remember taking a walk around the neighborhood just to kind of get some of that anxiety out, get some movement going. And I had my mask on. I wasn't even sure if I was supposed to be out or if I'm supposed to wear a mask while working out because there was still so much misinformation. But I remember truly at that time, out of nowhere, thinking about a scripture in the Bible from the book of James that says, "Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that." And I remember that was so crazy in my mind because I was like, yo, I literally cannot say what I will or will not do. I'd like to go over here, but I cannot because it's closed. I'd like to go over there, but I cannot because there's a mandate against it. It was literally the first time a scripture was that real in my face to say, this is one scripture that you've taken for granted. You've always thought, okay, I'll just say, well, if the Lord wills. Almost like rubbing the lamp of a genie. It's like, I'll just do it because that's what the Bible says. But it's like, no, you literally need to say, man, if it's your will, I'll go here. And currently, I can't play with this anymore. I literally cannot go. And so that level of control that I thought I had over my life, it really showed that I do not have it. And though I'm working on that, and that's just a part of who I am, it really dismantled that. On top of that, it gave me some freedom and some peace to go, no, your life is not your own. You don't have control of it. So you need to be grateful for what you do have. So many crazy things have happened, but you know what I personally have, and not everybody has this story, so I'm very sensitive in saying this. I have my health today. I have my family today. My kids are healthy today. My husband is healthy today. My 85-year-old grandmother is healthy today. My mom, so there are some things that I have today. And if I continue to pine for the future of what will be, I might miss today. And it's the only thing that I have promised is what I'm in currently. And so that has been a really, view shaping scripture and realization in this time. And so I want to offer that to you. We cannot control our lives, and this has just proven it. And so if it is true, then we need to live and get help in a way that helps us manage the stress and the anxiety that's producing because we cannot control it. And then I said I'd give a quote from the amazing Dr. Maya Angelou. And she said, each of us has lived through some devastation, some loneliness, some weather superstorm or spiritual superstorm. When we look at each other, we must say, I understand. I understand how you feel because I have been there myself. We must support each other because each of us is more alike than we are unalike. That is my biggest takeaway from this time. We have to honor the fact that we are all going through a collective trauma. And with any collective trauma, each person's going to handle it differently. So that spirit of judgment, that Judge Judy spirit that I've been having of just, and I say that facetiously, and yet trying to be honest, that there are times where I go, why are you acting like that? Why are you doing that? I'm assigning motive to people's actions, which you should never do to somebody because you don't know the reason behind somebody's why. And so I think about it as a family. You always see, let's say 4 siblings that came from the same family and they each act differently. You go, man, weren't these people raised by the same people? Why are they all acting so differently? They could come from abuse or, addiction, parents with addiction. And one person might go on to be a model citizen as their way to deal. One person might go, well, I'm going to shut out that family and I'm just going to forge my own and we're going to be healthy. And that's how they deal with the trauma. One person might literally, have the same addictions that the parents did or just wild out and they cannot fathom being able to manage this life. You see that all the time. We all handle our collective traumas differently. And I think that we need to see each other as siblings and go, that's not how I would handle it, but I can't judge it because they're going through something. What you can do, though, is if you're somebody that is not as free as somebody else, you can set your boundary and say, hey, hey, I know you're free to do this. I know you're tired of being cooped up. I know you're tired of being in fear, so you're living this way. I'm currently not, so this is my boundary. You cannot be around like this. I cannot come around like this, X, Y, and Z. You have permission. You have the ability to stand in who you are and to stand in your boundaries, right? If you're somebody who is freer and, you don't want to be around the person that's got all these rules in order to be around them, you may say, hey, I'm just really wrestling, so I can't be around you. I love you. I can't wait to be around you, but that's just not where I am right now. And so I'm going to go over here and do this. We can understand where people are without dismantling their personhood. That is possible. That is an option here. And I think the crazy thing about us politicizing this illness is that it really has put a division, put a wedge. And I hate to say division because we're already divided, but it's further, drawing that line in the sand. And so we can say more than any time in our lives that we understand somebody because we are really all going through the same thing. Teachers and health workers, I bless you. I'm so proud of you. I know that it's hard. I feel like when this is all over in years to come, we're going to talk about the work that you did as heroes of this time. And I know that some of you might have fear about being the first people to get the vaccine. Some of you may be totally fine with it, but there may be some true fear. You guys are so used to being brave and you do it so well, but to step out and to do that might be fearful for you. And so people need to honor that and watch your mouth around these brave people as you talk about or don't talk about the vaccine. You need to understand where somebody is. They have to go to work, right? They have to take care of people. And so they may need to be the people stepping out yet again on the front lines to try something out. So honor that. If you're the person that's ranting and raving about, hey, look, we're all going to get it. It's fine. Stop being so scared. Understand that you have a brother or sister that has to go to work, who may be a single parent, who can't afford to get sick, who can't afford being sick. Some of y'all act like 400,000 people haven't died. Like there literally may be somebody, I told a friend the other day, I'm avoiding this like the plague. I think that's where the saying comes from. I don't want it. I'm avoiding it. And some people want to do that. You need to honor that. Not everybody has the same life as you. Some people cannot literally afford to get sick. So understand where they're coming from and watch your mouth, right? If you're the person that's got all the rules, understand where that other person is coming from. Stop comparing your choices to other people's choices. Stop assigning motive when you see people doing things that you wouldn't necessarily do. Be sensitive to your people around you. We are more alike than we are unalike. And I know at this time in America especially, it seems like that can't possibly be true, but we all are human. And the only way that we become unalike is when we dismantle each other's humanity. So respect each other, honor where we are. And I definitely say, though, if you are free, when you come up to somebody who's a friend of yours and you know that they aren't as free as you, wear your mask. It's that loving your neighbor like you would love yourself, right? Just do what you can. Or a novel thing, ask the person, what are you comfortable with? Can I put on a mask and talk to you about how you're struggling? Ask people how they're doing. This isn't over. And it doesn't seem to be going anywhere soon. So let's talk about it. Let's stop acting like this doesn't exist or really it's just like a bad movie going on behind us. We're just kind of acting like it's going to fade out eventually. Reach out to people. Say that you're struggling. It's okay to be where you are. So I hope to come back, next show and have a guest. But if I don't, that's because I'm practicing on being where I am. And I encourage you to do that. Bless you guys. It's a hard, unprecedented season. And it's okay. This is not normal. We will get through it. And I just pray that you stay healthy and do what it takes to stay mentally healthy as well as physically healthy. I love you. I hope you have a good week.